Okay, this is the beginning of section 4.3, the hardest part of it, maybe, I don't know. So we're going to do the 11 through 18 part, but not the 23 and 24 part. So we're going to save that for next time, and we're going to work on this part. And all you have to do in this section is say, what is the domain of a function? And the domain, we can't have the denominator be 0. So what we do is put the denominator equal to 0 and solve, and x can't be that because the denominator can't be 0. So whatever makes the denominator 0, we write x cannot equal that. So here's what I did on this first one. You can use logic a little bit, like you don't necessarily have to do all this math. If you noticed that 1 to the third would be 1 minus 1, and that's 0, so x can't be 1. You could factor it, which I did here. And I found, all right, well, x can't be 1 because that would make the denominator 0. You could put it into the quadratic equation, which I did with this part. And it came out that there'd be a negative under the square root. So we're not going to get any real numbers. So it's just this. So for this one, x can't equal 1. Why? Because that's the number that would make the denominator 0. Again, for this one, I factored it. It says x squared minus 9. That's a difference of squares. So x can't be 3 or negative 3. Because if we plugged those in, the denominator would be 0. Notice I haven't even talked about the numerator because I literally don't care what it is. I could write the word Fred up there or draw a naked person, and it wouldn't matter because we don't care what's in the numerator when we're talking about the domain. Not right now, anyway. So we're looking at the denominator. We're saying whatever makes the denominator 0, x can't be that. So that's it. For this one, it's real easy. It's already factored. So what can x not be? Well, it can't be 2, and it can't be 3. So the domain of this function is all numbers except 2 and 3. And you can write it like this for me. The book is going to write it all weird. They're going to write a problem like that. They're going to say the set of all x's such that x cannot equal 2 and 3. This is the set notation for exactly the same thing we wrote up there. So don't worry too much about the way they write it. Just look at the numbers they got if you're checking your own answers. All right, this one was a little trickier. You can see I got messed up on it halfway through when I was working it out, but you factor the thing. So that's what I did. I found the two things that multiply to -6 and add up to -5, and I factored it and got this, and that means x can't be 3 because of that part. And then for this part, I put that bit equal to 0. I subtracted the 1 from both sides, and I divided both sides by the 2, and that's where the -1/2 came from. Let's say you don't like factoring, like you just hate it. I'll remind you of the quadratic formula. It's really hard to write and hold this phone. Sorry, -b plus or minus the square root of. Ooh, that was really, probably gave you a headache. Sorry. What we're going to do, we're going to hold it like that. B squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That's the quadratic formula, and you could just as easily have put this thing in there. So -b is -5 plus or minus the square root of b squared. -5 squared is 25. Minus 4 times a times c. So that's 4 times 2 is 8. Times -3 is -24. So minus -24 is plus 24 over 2 times a. The a is the first term, the 2. When we put it in there, if you work all that out, you end up getting those exact same two numbers that I got by factoring. So if you get something complicated like that, you can either factor it or put it in the quadratic equation. But what we're really trying to do is just use whatever logic we can to try to figure out what would make the denominator 0. So that should get you started on this section. If you get to some of the trickier ones and need a reminder about how to factor it or how to do the quadratic equation, just let me know. You might have to wave at me. But I think your class is just working on an assignment today, so it should be a little easier for me to get to you. We'll worry about the second section later, but it's just naming things from a graph, so I actually think it's going to be a little easier. All right. Good luck, and hope you have a great weekend in case I don't forget to say that.